Long before villages, before cities, before the idea of land belonging to anyone, human beings lived a life of endless movement. They walked across plains, forests, and riverbanks, carrying little more than stone tools, animal skins, and fire. Food was something to be chased, gathered, or stolen from nature before it disappeared again. Nothing stayed. Hunger followed them like a shadow, always close, always patient. In this world lived a small group of people near a wide river that provided fish and water, though they never thought of it as permanent. Among them was a young hunter named Aru, whose sharp eyes noticed patterns in nature that others ignored. He was not the strongest, but he remembered where berries grew and how animals behaved before the rain. His sister Mira was younger and curious, asking questions that made elders uncomfortable. She wondered why trees gave fruit every year, and why animals returned to the same places again and again. The elders, especially the oldest man, Tor, believed questions were dangerous. Tor had lived through many winters and believed humans were born to walk. He often said that the road was their home and that staying too long invited death. One year, however, nature broke its usual promises. The herds did not return, the fruits dried early, and fish became rare. Hunger entered their camp openly. Children cried at night, and even strong hunters returned empty-handed. Fires burned low, and fear grew. One evening, as shadows danced on the cave walls, Mira asked whether the land was tired of feeding them. No one answered her. Tor finally spoke and decided they must move north, even though no one knew what awaited them there. They packed what little they owned and left the river behind, unaware that they were abandoning the place where their future had quietly begun. The journey north was cruel. Cold winds, sickness, and hunger followed them. Some nearly died. When they finally returned south months later, exhausted and thin, they found something strange waiting for them at their old camp. The land had changed. Where they once threw waste and broken fruit, green plants now grew. Tall grasses bent in the wind, heavy with seeds. Near the ashes of old fires, life had risen. Mira stared in disbelief, suddenly remembering how she had thrown fruit seeds there long ago. Aru knelt and touched the soil, feeling its softness. Tor walked slowly through the plants, his eyes wide with a thought he had never allowed himself to have before. The land, it seemed, had remembered them. They stayed, not because they planned to, but because curiosity held them still. Day after day, Aru watched the plants grow taller after rain and stronger under the sun. No predators chased them away, no storms destroyed the camp. For the first time in their lives, they waited instead of walking. Mira began to believe the land was giving food without being hunted. Tor, silent and thoughtful, wondered if humans had simply never listened before. One evening, Mira gathered seeds in her hands and pressed them gently into the soil near the river. Aru asked why she was burying food, and others laughed, calling it foolish. But Tor stopped them and told them to let her try. It was a small moment, almost invisible, yet it carried the weight of the future. Days passed and nothing happened. People complained and grew impatient. Waiting was harder than hunting because it demanded faith. Then, one morning, a child shouted in excitement. Tiny green shoots were pushing through the ground. Life was rising where food had been buried. Silence fell as everyone stared. Something had changed forever. Not everyone welcomed this change. Some feared angering spirits, others feared staying in one place too long. But Tor reminded them that fire had once terrified humans too, and now it kept them alive. The group continued experimenting, learning through failure. Some plants died from too much water, others were destroyed by animals, but some survived. Mira noticed which seeds grew strongest, and Aru built small fences to protect them. Without knowing the words, humans were learning about care, timing, and selection. The earth became their teacher. Months later, the plants stood tall and golden. When Tor cut the first harvest with a stone blade, seeds spilled into his hands. Food had grown without being chased. Mira cried, Aru laughed, and the children danced. That night they ate without fear. For the first time, food was not uncertain. They did not move that year. Shelters grew stronger, food was stored, and children grew safely. Women no longer walked endlessly while carrying life inside them, and elders lived longer. Humans and land made a silent agreement to protect each other. Time, once meaningless, became important. They watched the seasons and counted the moons. They learned when to plant, when to harvest, and when to rest. Roles changed. Some hunted, some farmed, some shaped tools, and some told stories. Society slowly formed its first shape. Yet farming was not perfect. Disease spread, labor was hard, and arguments over land began. Freedom of endless movement was lost, but stability was gained. Civilization always demands a price. Mira taught children how to plant seeds, and Aru taught them how to protect the fields. Tor taught them respect for the land, warning them never to take without giving back. One morning, Tor did not wake up. They buried him near the fields, and Mira placed seeds on his grave. When green plants later rose from that soil, it felt like the land itself was speaking. Other groups came and saw the fields. They learned and carried the idea elsewhere. From river to river and valley to valley, the seed story spread. Huts became villages, villages became towns, and towns became cities. Surplus food allowed humans to think, write, build, and dream. The first civilizations grew from soil that had once been ignored. Over time, people forgot hunger and wandering. They forgot the first seed and the first waiting. But the land never forgot. Every harvest repeated the same ancient lesson. The food on our plates, the cities we live in, and the history we inherit all began with one quiet idea born from observation and patience. The greatest revolution in human history did not begin with a weapon or a king. It began when a human dared to stay, planted a seed, and trusted the earth to answer.